Ever wondered what happens when a Mennonite steps into an Amish worship service? The moment they enter, subtle yet profound differences create an unspoken tension that ripples through the entire congregation, revealing centuries-old divisions that most outsiders never realize exist. Visual recognition. The identification process begins instantly. Amish church members possess an almost supernatural ability to spot Mennonite visitors within seconds of their arrival. The telltale signs are unmistakable to trained eyes. Mennonite women often wear floral patterns or brighter colors, while Amish women strictly adhere to solid, muted tones. Men's clothing reveals even more differences. Mennonite men might sport modern belt buckles or contemporary shoe styles that immediately mark them as outsiders in the plain community. Dress codes. The clothing protocols run deeper than surface appearances. Amish women must wear cape dresses with specific measurements, prayer coverings tied in precise ways, and black stockings without exception. Mennonite women, while modest, often wear contemporary dresses or skirts that fall short of Amish standards. The fabric choices tell stories of theological differences. Synthetic materials, machine-stitched buttonholes, and factory-made garments signal worldly compromise to Amish observers. Even seemingly minor details like zipper placement or collar styles carry significant meaning. These visual markers instantly communicate theological positions without a single word being spoken between the communities. Seating rules. The worship space operates under invisible but rigid protocols that govern every movement. Amish congregations follow gender-separated seating arrangements with men occupying one side and women the other, a practice that extends back centuries. Visitors must navigate these unwritten rules carefully. Mennonite families accustomed to sitting together suddenly find themselves physically divided by ancient customs. The front rows remain reserved for church elders and established community members, while visitors typically receive guidance toward middle or rear sections. Children under 16 sit with their mothers regardless of gender, but older teens must conform to adult separation rules. The seating hierarchy reflects spiritual authority structures that outsiders rarely comprehend. Even the direction of entry into the worship space follows predetermined patterns that Mennonite visitors might unknowingly violate. Language barriers. Pennsylvania German dominates Amish worship services, creating immediate communication challenges for Mennonite visitors. The ancient dialect, preserved for over 3 centuries, serves as both a worship language and a cultural barrier. Opening prayers, hymn announcements, and scripture readings flow in German, while English appears only occasionally for visitor accommodation. Mennonite congregations abandoned Pennsylvania German decades ago, leaving their members linguistically isolated during Amish services. The hymnal presents another obstacle. Amish communities use the Ausbund, a 16th-century German songbook containing hymns without musical notation. Mennonite visitors cannot follow the complex, unaccompanied singing traditions that define Amish worship. Translation becomes a delicate social dance. Helpful Amish members might whisper English explanations, but excessive translation disrupts the service flow and draws unwanted attention to the visitor's outsider status. Worship styles. The fundamental approach to corporate worship reveals stark theological differences between these sister communities. Amish services unfold with deliberate, unhurried pacing that can stretch beyond 3 hours, while Mennonite congregations typically conclude within 90 minutes. The preaching style contrasts sharply. Amish ministers deliver sermons without notes, speaking from spiritual inspiration and community tradition rather than formal theological training. Their messages flow in rhythmic, chanting patterns that build emotional intensity through repetition and biblical storytelling. Mennonite pastors, often seminary-educated, present structured sermons with clear theological points and contemporary applications. Musical worship creates another divide. Amish congregations sing ancient German hymns in haunting unison melodies that can extend for 20 minutes per song. No instruments accompany the voices, and the tempo remains deliberately slow. Mennonite churches embrace 4-part harmony, contemporary Christian music, and instrumental accompaniment. The contrast between modern praise songs and 16th century German hymns highlights centuries of theological evolution. Community awareness. The congregation's collective consciousness shifts when Mennonite visitors enter their sacred space. Subtle glances and whispered conversations ripple through the gathering as members process the implications of outsider presence. Children receive gentle corrections from parents when their curiosity becomes too obvious, yet the fascination remains palpable. Elderly church members, keepers of community memory, often recognize family connections that span generations. They might recall when certain Mennonite families left the Amish faith decades earlier, creating complex emotional undercurrents during worship. The ministers face particular challenges when visitors attend. Sermon content might require subtle adjustments to address theological differences without creating controversy. Biblical passages about separation from the world take on heightened significance when delivered to mixed audiences. Some congregations develop informal protocols for visitor management. Designated greeters might approach Mennonite guests before services begin, explaining basic procedures and setting appropriate expectations. However, these interactions must balance hospitality with community boundaries. The delicate social navigation requires wisdom and cultural sensitivity from both groups. Participation limits. Clear boundaries govern what Mennonite visitors can and cannot do during Amish worship services. Communion presents the most obvious restriction. Amish congregations practice closed communion, limiting participation to baptized members in good standing within their specific church district. Mennonite visitors, regardless of their Christian faith or baptismal status, cannot partake in the sacred meal. This exclusion often surprises Mennonite families who practice open communion in their own churches. Prayer participation follows similar patterns. While visitors can bow their heads during corporate prayer, they cannot lead prayers or offer public testimonies without explicit invitation. The Sunday school hour, when it occurs, might welcome Mennonite children, but adult classes often discuss community-specific issues that require cultural context. Financial contributions create another gray area. Some Amish communities accept donations from visitors, while others prefer to maintain complete financial independence. The offering process itself differs significantly. Amish churches might pass a simple wooden box rather than traditional collection plates, and the amount of giving often remains completely private. These participation boundaries reflect deeper theological convictions about church membership, community commitment, and spiritual authority that extend far beyond simple hospitality concerns. Biblical interpretations. Theological differences emerge most clearly when both groups encounter identical scripture passages through vastly different interpretive lenses. The concept of separation from the world serves as a primary dividing line. Amish communities interpret biblical commands about worldliness with strict literalism, rejecting modern technology, contemporary clothing styles, and higher education as spiritual compromises. Mennonite congregations, while maintaining conservative values, embrace selective modernization as tools for Christian service and community engagement. Biblical passages about submission and authority create additional tension points. Amish interpretation of headship principles extends to detailed regulations about women's clothing, hair covering, and public speaking roles. Mennonite churches often adopt more flexible applications of these same scriptures, allowing women greater participation in church leadership and ministry roles. The doctrine of non-resistance provides another interpretive challenge. Both communities claim biblical pacifism, yet their practical applications differ significantly. Amish members avoid all forms of political participation, legal proceedings, and civil service, while Mennonites often engage in social justice activism, legal advocacy, and community organizing. These theological differences become particularly apparent when scripture readings address modern challenges like technology use, educational choices, or community engagement. The same biblical text can support completely opposite lifestyle choices depending on the interpretive framework applied by each community. Technology acceptance. The relationship with modern technology reveals perhaps the most visible difference between Amish and Mennonite communities, creating immediate tension when members interact during worship. Amish rejection of electricity in church buildings means services occur in naturally lit spaces without sound amplification, air conditioning, or electronic instruments. Mennonite visitors accustomed to microphones, electric lighting, and climate control must adjust to fundamentally different worship environments. Transportation methods to church services highlight these technological divides. Mennonite families arrive in modern automobiles, while Amish members travel by horse and buggy, creating parking challenges and symbolic contrasts in church lots. The presence of cars among buggies serves as a constant visual reminder of theological differences. Communication technology creates additional complications. Mennonite visitors might inadvertently bring cell phones into worship spaces where electronic devices are strictly forbidden. Emergency communication procedures differ dramatically between communities. Amish congregations rely on predetermined protocols involving designated drivers with telephones, while Mennonite churches assume immediate electronic communication availability. Recording technology becomes particularly sensitive. Mennonite churches often record sermons or stream services online, practices that violate fundamental Amish principles about technology and privacy. Photography during worship remains absolutely forbidden in Amish services, while Mennonite congregations might document special events or visiting speakers. These technological boundaries reflect deeper theological convictions about simplicity, community autonomy, and spiritual focus that cannot be easily compromised or negotiated. Social interactions. The social dynamics following Amish worship services create complex navigation challenges for Mennonite visitors seeking meaningful connections across cultural boundaries. Traditional fellowship meals occur in homes rather than church kitchens, requiring invitation protocols that outsiders rarely understand. Amish families must carefully consider the implications of inviting Mennonite guests into their private spaces where lifestyle differences become more apparent. Conversation topics require delicate handling during these social interactions. Discussions about employment, education, or technology use can quickly reveal theological differences that create uncomfortable tensions. Amish hosts might feel pressure to explain their lifestyle choices, while Mennonite guests might inadvertently ask questions that seem judgmental or challenging to traditional values. Children's interactions provide both opportunities and challenges during these fellowship times. Young people from both communities share common interests but face restrictions about friendship development across denominational lines. Parents must balance hospitality with concerns about outside influences on their children's spiritual development. Language barriers continue during social interactions, as Pennsylvania German conversations exclude Mennonite visitors from informal community discussions. Translation efforts, while well-intentioned, can slow conversation flow and create artificial dynamics that prevent natural relationship building. Gift-giving customs and reciprocity expectations differ between communities. Mennonite visitors might bring flowers, books, or food items that seem inappropriate or excessive within Amish simplicity standards. Understanding these social protocols requires cultural sensitivity and patience from both groups as they navigate centuries of separation and theological development. Invitation customs. The invitation process for Mennonite visitors to attend Amish worship services involves intricate social networks and unwritten protocols that reflect both hospitality traditions and community protection instincts. Initial invitations typically come through family connections, business relationships, or geographical proximity rather than formal church outreach programs. Amish communities do not actively evangelize or seek converts, making unsolicited visits extremely rare and potentially unwelcome. Extended family members who have joined Mennonite congregations often serve as bridges between communities, facilitating occasional visits during special occasions like weddings, funerals, or baptismal services. These family connections carry significant weight in determining visitor acceptance and integration levels. Business relationships between Amish and Mennonite community members create another invitation pathway. Shared agricultural practices, craft traditions, or commercial interactions sometimes develop into personal friendships that extend worship invitations. However, these business-based relationships must carefully balance professional cooperation with theological boundaries. Seasonal celebrations and community events provide natural opportunities for cross-denominational interaction. Harvest festivals, barn raisings, or disaster relief efforts might include worship components that welcome broader participation. These special occasions often feature modified protocols that accommodate diverse attendees while maintaining essential Amish traditions. The invitation process itself requires careful timing and appropriate intermediaries. Direct approaches from unknown Mennonite individuals might be politely declined, while properly introduced visitors receive warm welcomes. Host families assume responsibility for guest orientation, ensuring visitors understand basic expectations and protocols before entering worship spaces. Return invitations create complex reciprocal obligations that both communities must navigate carefully, balancing hospitality with theological consistency and community boundary maintenance. Relationship outcomes. The long-term relationship development between Amish and Mennonite communities following worship visits reveals complex patterns of connection, separation, and ongoing negotiation that extend far beyond initial encounters. Successful relationships typically develop slowly through repeated interactions, mutual respect demonstration, and careful boundary acknowledgement from both sides. Family connections often provide the strongest foundation for sustained relationships across denominational lines. Intermarriage between Amish and Mennonite young people, while rare, creates permanent bridges that require ongoing navigation of theological differences and lifestyle adjustments. These marriages often result in one spouse converting to the other's faith tradition, fundamentally altering family dynamics and community relationships. Business partnerships sometimes flourish despite theological differences, with Amish and Mennonite entrepreneurs finding common ground in shared work ethics, quality craftsmanship, and community service values. These professional relationships often extend into personal friendships that transcend denominational boundaries while respecting essential differences. Educational cooperation represents another successful relationship outcome. Mennonite colleges and universities sometimes provide resources or expertise for Amish community needs, while Amish craftspeople might teach traditional skills in Mennonite educational settings. These partnerships benefit both communities while maintaining distinct identity boundaries. However, relationship failures occur frequently due to irreconcilable theological differences or cultural misunderstandings. Attempts at deeper integration often expose fundamental incompatibilities regarding technology use, education priorities, or community engagement approaches. Some relationships deteriorate when one community perceives the other as compromising essential values or exercising inappropriate influence. Geographic proximity plays a crucial role in relationship sustainability. Communities living in close physical proximity develop more nuanced understanding and accommodation patterns than those separated by significant distances. Seasonal interactions during agricultural cycles or community emergencies often maintain relationships that might otherwise fade due to limited contact opportunities and different social priorities.